Recently, a young web developer for a U.S. tech company emailed her colleagues saying she was taking a couple of days off to focus on her mental health. Not long after that, the CEO of that company responded by thanking her for her honesty and reminding employees to use sick days to recharge and come back to work refreshed. She shared his response on Twitter. It quickly went viral, stirring up discussion on the need to cut through the stigma of mental health in the workplace. Madalyn Parker is a web developer at Olark. Madalyn, when you decided to write this email, what was going through your mind?
I was thinking about how I had been feeling the past couple days, which was really unproductive, really depressed. I was having a hard time eating, even getting out of bed, taking care of my basic needs because of my mental illness. And I decided that it was more productive for me to take some time off and come back to work refreshed.
And why not just write to your boss and say, you know what, I think I got the flu, I'm going to stay home? Why tell everybody specifically what it was that was going on?
That's what I used to do. And then lying about things and not bringing your whole self to work, having to hide part of yourself increases that anxiety and increases the depression. And being able to be honest has made me feel so much better.
It's funny because there's a dichotomy there that taking the leap to write an email like that to the whole company must have caused you some anxiety in and of itself, and yet in doing so probably relieved a lot of that anxiety in the same moment.
Yes and no. I've been very open at work for several years now. Probably 2.5 years ago, I talked to one of our founders one-on-one. And we decided that we should be very open about mental health and how supportive we are about it internally. And so while not everyone is comfortable writing emails as specific as I do, I'm specific to set that example so that they can look at my example and be like, oh, yeah, that's totally a valid reason to take time off.
And so given all that, what was your reaction when you saw Ben, the CEO's response?
I hadn't heard from Ben in a little bit. I mean, we're a relatively small company. There's about 40 of us. There were about 20 of us when I started. And to have that personal response and not only recognize that I was putting myself out there, but to thank me for it was a big deal. And I told him that, and he was totally taken aback.
His point that mental health is health and that we need to address it as such. What for you is the bigger point to all of this and the takeaway for the rest of us from learning from this experience?
Yeah, I think mental health is one of the big things. And another thing is that if you're an employer and you show that you trust and you value and you respect your employees, that culture will foster productivity eventually.
Well, listen, thanks for doing this, Madalyn. I know a lot of people are watching at home and hopefully being able to get something out of this for themselves as well.
Thank you so much.
Madalyn Parker, web developer with Olark. Madalyn Parker may have been willing to be open about her need to recharge mentally and emotionally, but there aren't many executives and managers out there stating that mental health of their workers is just as important as their physical health. Ben Congleton is the co-founder and CEO of Olark. Ben, when you first saw Madalyn's email come across the chain and you see what she said, she's going to take some time for mental health, what message did you want to send out to the rest of the company when you first saw that?
Well, it's funny because at that time, I just really wanted to send a message to Madalyn and give her some gratitude for speaking out about mental health in our organization, because she's been pretty active at talking about mental health in our organization. And anytime someone, explicitly calls out that they're taking mental health time, it's different, right? It's unconventional. And I want to call out Madalyn for helping us normalize that within our organization. So it really wasn't a message to the company. It was just a message to Madalyn initially.
And then it sort of gets tweeted out and talked about, and now you're on international television talking about it. Are you surprised at the extent to which people are glomming onto this as an example of how companies should react?
Well, I was definitely initially surprised at the popularity of the tweet. But as I started reading the responses from other people on Twitter, I realized how different and how unconventional my approach was to typical leaders. And, I got kind of emotional, right? There's people talking about how they were depressed and their boss told them they would be fired. There's people talking about how they just take time off and they say they're not feeling well when it's for a mental health issue. And I think it really got me thinking that, like, wow, this is an issue that's affecting a ton of people, and no one's really talking about it. So I, just felt honored to be able to help bring this conversation up to the international level, and hopefully we'll have a lot of smart people working on solutions.
And I mean, part of this is just simply capitalism, trying to address the bottom line, that all of the data have told us for all of the years that if you deal with mental health issues, if you treat mental health as health, that the bottom line, the efficiency of the workers, the profitability of a company is going to increase in line. Why do you think this is such a difficult message to get across in the corporate world?
I think that in the corporate world, it's really easy to get very caught up on sort of short-term, very goal-oriented, quarter-by-quarter timelines, and it's really hard to step back and start, working on the systematic problems that are affecting performance. So, for example, someone might say, "Hey, we got this deadline. You have to work a 60-hour week," but they may not think about how that increases burnout in their team. Increases emotional stress, increases anxiety, and affects the overall performance of that team over the long haul. I think there's a lot of short-term thinking. I think part of it is too that mental health is one of those topics that just hasn't been talked about a lot, and I think we're entering this really interesting time where I think it's becoming a more safe issue to talk about. And so I think as more people grow up and talk about this issue in the public, we're going to see more companies kind of embracing and publicly talking about mental health. Since it's affecting, 1 in 6 Americans are taking, drugs or having therapy for mental health issues, and so.
And it's quite prevalent. There's a dichotomy here with the tech industry. That on the one hand, it's the timelines are fast and furious, and things are developing so quickly, and on the other, a lot of tech companies are fundamentally changing the way work happens and industries work and relate to their employees. Is there an opportunity here for companies like yourselves to set an example and that can have a sort of ripple effect into the rest of the economy and more traditional workplaces, that we can finally get an issue like this addressed?
I think that ultimately every manager, every leader is working to help increase performance for their team. So as we think about different strategies for increasing performance for our team, I think that we've found that having a psychological safe place to work, a place where people can bring their entire selves to work, can help us increase performance. And so I think ultimately, as more companies set that example, like within tech and within other industries, you'll see more managers and leaders looking to those companies and trying to emulate them. And I think it's going to be a really exciting future. And hopefully we've started the conversation around mental illness. I know there's a lot of other sort of social challenges that are seen as just HR issues, but can really turn into company performance issues and help people's teams excel and create more high performance teams and more winning companies.
Well, listen, thanks for taking the time to speak with us, and thanks for talking about this issue in the way that you have. It's really appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Ben Congleton is the co-founder and CEO of Olark.